Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Area Public Schools Trust. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2017 meeting, and I'd recognize a motion to that effect.
So moved.
So moved. Second. Moved and seconded. We don't have our list of our names, so we'll have to say aye and nay. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed by like sign. Thank you. Next item is to Suburban School District applications for funding.
Mr. Chairman, you have in your agenda today 2 different applications from the Suburban Funding, and these are the last 2 applications for the entire program. By agreement with all of the districts, they had to have their applications in by the end of 2017. These were turned in. And the first one is for Mustang Public Schools for $92,000. It is for a soccer facility improvements. And then you have Piedmont Public Schools for some Chromebook chargers for Piedmont Middle School for $347.54. And this takes both of their accounts to zero.
I'd recognize a motion to approve both items.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by like sign. Thank you. Next, Mr. Todd, are you still on?
Well, the next items are your financial reports. They're in the usual form that you're used to seeing, and then also the annual audit is in there also as item C.
We would need to approve all 3 financial reports. I know everybody's spent a lot of time reviewing them, but we will go ahead and vote anyway. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Would you like a motion first?
Oh, I guess we need to make...
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
It's made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed by like sign. Thank you. I've been out of practice. You know, we hadn't had very many meetings. Next, Mr. Todd.
Next is change order for Cesar Chavez Elementary Classrooms and Gymnasiums, an increase of $7,361.27. The standard has become with the district to use steel downspout boots, and that's where the downspout connects from about 3 or 4 feet above the sidewalk elevation, and then it ties and goes underground. Something that's much more robust there, so it doesn't get damaged by kids and different things out there. So this is to change those downspouts to steel.
Are there any questions? If not, I'd recognize a motion to approve change order number 3.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by like sign. Thank you. Next item, we're being asked to approve amendment number 1 to the architectural services contract with Design Architects Plus, Inc. for FD Moon Elementary School renovation, an increase of $87,000, project ES 84.
Mr. Chairman, if you will recall, we were able to add some funds to this project because of the excess funds in the program, about $900,000, and this is to cover the additional design fee for that $900,000.
Are there any questions?
What is the additional work that's to be done? Not so much by the architect, but the construction part of it.
One of the things that, with the initial project that we went through, it was a lot of life safety items, the sprinkler system and those various things, and we weren't able to do a lot of paint and tile and the things that we like to do to help just make the place look better from a cosmetic standpoint. So we're able to do some of those, and then we'll be doing the front end, the front entry area.
South side or the east side?
Be the east side. There by the offices. We're flipping those offices, changing the offices closer to the front and putting the nurse's station and those things in a different spot, kind of reworking that whole area so that it functions much better.
Any other questions? We've had the motion and we've had a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion? I have a motion. Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, by like sign. Thank you. Next item is to approve amendment number 1 to the architectural services contract with Design Architects Plus, Inc. We just did that one.
We just did that.
Sorry. Next, we're having a presentation on the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Area Public Schools Trust Program fund balance.
We were requested to give you an update on where we were financially as we start to see the end of the program. So I prepared this briefly to go through. And just as a reminder for those in the audience and maybe even for some of you, how the funding was structured. If you recall, the night of the Maps for Kids vote, there was also a GEO bond vote, $180 million. It passed. And you can see how the funding was split. So with the city sales tax, 30% was taken to the suburban schools program, which we just talked about and showed that it's essentially complete. 70% of that was added with the GEO bonds for the $530 million that went to the construction projects with Oklahoma City Public Schools, and then $150 million went to the 23 suburban school districts within Oklahoma City. Within the projects that were completed, there was technology and transportation along with what you would see as traditional construction. So with the technology, there was $52 million spent, and $17 million of that was with the bond funds that I just spoke of, and $35 million with the sales tax. And this was technology upgrades throughout the school district. Then $9 million of sales tax money was used to replace 160 buses, which brought the average age of the buses from 18 to 2 years. That technology that I speak of included 10,500 computers installed in all of the schools. There were presentation stations, mobile computer labs, you can see the numbers there, library automation systems, network printers, IT networks. We put all kinds of networks in the schools, whether it be wireless or wired, and then telephone systems in all the schools. This is a map showing the 23 different suburban school districts within Oklahoma City, and I'm still amazed every time I look at this that it extends from Union City clear out to Hera and Little Axe and McLeod, and then from a little piece of Norman all the way up to Luther. So a lot of different districts within Oklahoma City. This shows how much was allocated for each of those suburban districts, and it was done on a student basis, percentage of students that are in each of the districts within the city limits of Oklahoma City. So that goes from 43 million with Putnam City all the way down to 24,000 with Union City. And you can see that all of those schools applied and have been awarded all of the money with the exception of Luther Public Schools, which left $286.95. So as far as program status, we've completed 70 school projects. There were 45 early start roofing and fire alarm projects. And as far as the projects we have ongoing now is the Cesar Chavez project that you just saw a change order on. Then as far as future projects that are in the works, you have FD Moon that we just talked about on the amendment for the architecture. You have Capitol Hill High School roadway that is in engineering right now, and his first preliminary plans are due this week. You have Capitol Hill High School parking study. So let's wade through this to show you where we are financially. If you start at the top, the trust revenue was $411 million. Then as far as the total projects that we've completed and paid for is $351 million of those. And then you add the other projects, which is technology and buses of $50 million. I'm sorry, you deduct that from the top revenue. You get available for active projects of about $9.5 million. Then you see the active school projects that we have that I just mentioned. You get Chavez, Capitol Hill Roadway, Capitol Hill Parking Study, FD Moon. Then there's also a line item in there for administrative costs to administer the program. So as you go across in the columns, you can see that the first column is the contract amount with Chavez, well, with Chavez, we have an actual construction contract out there. With Moon, we have an architecture and engineering contract. Then we have additional contracts, which includes things like testing, geotech, any kind of land acquisition, or any of those other things. And then also there's staff costs in those items too. Then we have projected costs, which also includes contingencies that are out there for each of the projects. So projected costs might include, for instance, on the Capitol High School roadway, that's the actual construction that is in there because it hasn't started. The Capitol High School parking study, the $50,000 that's there, that's the engineering fee that we anticipate. And then you get a total there in the right column. So dropping down to each of those totals, you can see the contract amount, the additional contracts that we expect, and then the projected additional contracts and contingencies. So if you take the balance of the revenue, the $9.5 million, and deduct those three columns of the contract, the additional contracts, and the projected amounts, you see that we net out at $820,200. That's essentially where we will leave the program. There could be some money come out of contingency if we don't spend all that. It could roll in there. What we anticipate doing as the trust dissolves is that money will be put into an account with the city, and the school district will essentially apply for projects to use that money so that they can continue to use it for school projects.
Any questions?
Would this trust have to vote to put that money under the city's purview?
There are documents that are being prepared that will take care of that. Yeah, you'll have, the language will state of how it will be handled.
Are the suburban schools eligible for this?
No, sir.
Any other questions? I'm going to comment that some of these technology projects were not invented when we started.
That's true. That's very true.
Some of these technology projects were not invented.
I might add that there are some schools that saw basically 2 rounds of computers because of that timeline also. They went from the tubed TVs and eventually it rolled over where they got flat screen monitors also.
It's 3 times since we started.
Any
Thank
questions?
you for putting this together.
Very much so, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I would, again, though, I have requested that the Capitol Hill High School roadway and parking projects be called the Southside Stadium parking and roadway projects.
I guess it's time for you, Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Construction is nearing substantial completion on the Cesar Chavez Elementary School classroom and gym project. Furniture is scheduled for delivery by the end of this month. And as Mr. Todd covered in one of the items on your agenda, of the 3 remaining suburban districts that had not requested an allocation of all of their funds, 2 of those have, Mustang and Piedmont, and Luther was the only one that did not. FB Moon Elementary School renovation design is in progress. 60% drawings have been submitted and are now under review. Mr. Todd mentioned the Capitol High School roadway, or as Trustee Francisco would prefer it to be called, the Southside Stadium roadway improvements. Draft preliminary report has been submitted and is under review, and A&E selection is underway on the Capitol parking and traffic movement study.
Anything else?
I might mention that at our last meeting, I think y'all were informed, or perhaps it was by phone call, that this would be the last meeting of the trust. Through some discussions with the municipal counselor's office, we have discovered that there are some statutory requirements that have to be met before we can actually dissolve the trust. So this is not your last meeting.
You going to give us a raise?
Yes, we're going to double everybody's salary.
That's great. That's just great. Comments by trustees? Staff? Citizens? Thank you for being here. We're adjourned.